Hi guys, it's Grace with Grace Gets Gastric, and I am here today for a super exciting collaboration video with the awesome Erin over at my Level 10 Life. So I'll go ahead and link her down below, but if you are not familiar with her channel, I don't know how you aren't, but she had VSG about 2 years ago, around the same time as I did, and then she also had plastic surgery last month. So I think about 2 weeks after I had plastic surgery. She also had surgery in Tijuana, Mexico, but with a different surgeon. So we thought it would be fun to get together, talk about our different experiences, kind of some similarities, some differences, recommendations, suggestions, all of that great stuff. So over on her channel is her interviewing me. So I'll talk about my experience and she asked some questions. And then this channel, my channel, this video is going to be her talking about her experiences. Just we thought it would be fun to give a little bit of, sorry, my earring fell out, a little bit of an introduction to one another's channels and experiences, just to expose one another's viewers to things and to get another perspective, because I do think that that is one of the really great things and one of the excellent things about this community is being able to get different experiences and perspectives, because that helps you kind of form your own opinion and just have more information to go on when you are thinking about maybe your own plastics journey. So without further ado, we're going to go ahead and I'll let Erin introduce herself, and you can learn more about her experience.
Hey guys, my name is Erin and I am a founder and creator over at my Level 10 Life, and Grace has let me share my plastics and gastric sleeve journey with you. So I wanted to share just a little bit about my experience. We had a lot of fun interviewing each other, and her stories over on my channel and my stories over here on her channel. And so I wanted to share a little bit about my journey with you, because I know we both have a lot of weight loss surgery friends that follow us. And we love hearing everyone's stories. That's the beautiful part of this journey, is that there's so many different stories of where we've had surgery, how it was for each one of us. And I wanted to share a little bit about mine. I went to Tijuana, Mexico on December 2nd, 2017, and had VSG gastric sleeve surgery with Dr. Elias Ortiz. And I had a really great experience there. Really good care. I went home and over the next 2 years ended up losing 150 pounds. My highest weight was 290, and I got down to 140 and then went back up to about 153, which I figured was kind of my sweet spot, where my body liked to be and where it was easy to maintain. But I had a lot of loose skin, and I ended up I knew I needed to have skin removal surgery with plastics. So I began to research different surgeons and different places I could go to do that. I looked here in the States and didn't find a surgeon that could do what I thought I needed and wanted, and it just never felt right. When I would get estimates and research places, and nothing gave me that like safe, warm, fuzzy feeling of, oh, this is a good place for me, until a good friend of mine, Mom's Saving Grace, she went to Dr. Pedro Puebla in Tijuana, Mexico. And I just absolutely loved hearing about her experience and results. And I began to research his work, and I loved the way his patients looked afterwards. I felt like a lot of patients in the States, when I would research, they would have kind of like a SpongeBob square look. And I didn't want that shape to my body afterwards. I wanted more of an hourglass, curvy, more feminine look, and that was what I was desiring and looking for in a surgeon, was could he provide those results. One of the things that when I had my surgery, is I got really thin when I was at 140, and I kind of lost my curves and had this extra skin that was about a volleyball size on my stomach. And I would just always tuck it. If you guys have had kids, I would just tuck it into my leggings, kind of story of our life, right? And I knew it needed to go. And so I finally felt like, I felt when I talked to Dr. Puebla's patient coordinator, Stephanie, she just was very warm, very responsive, very good at answering all my questions. I felt at ease. I felt very sound and secure in my decision in going to Tijuana. And I decided to go down there and do a tummy tuck a pubic lift, a liposuction around the areas on my core and back, and a muscle repair. And so I did those things and had a really great experience. I went, I'm 2 weeks post-op yesterday, so I'm 2 weeks out now, and so I'm 2 weeks behind you. And I remember we had this conversation maybe a month and a half ago. I was like, I'm thinking about going. I hadn't even decided for sure. And I just was kind of thinking about timing and insurance-wise on my end. And then I made a really quick decision to go in 2 weeks and did it pretty quickly from the time I made my decision. And it wasn't that I made a really quick decision. I'd been thinking about it for a couple years, but I made a promise to myself that I would wait 2 years before I did it because I wanted to make sure that I was where my body was comfortable. And a lot of people wait a year, and I think I lost a lot of my weight in the 12 to 18 month range after my gastric sleeve. And then my body went through so much mentally and emotionally during that time when I found like the place where my body was happy, that I needed to be happy with myself no matter what before I did the skin removal surgery. Because for me, the emotional and mental side of the skin removal has been more difficult than the VSG process was for me. And so that's why I waited 2 years. And I know a lot of people, ask like, well, when should I think about that? And that's really like a personal decision. I think you have to just kind of know when you're comfortable. I've had friends that have done it at a year. I've had friends that have done it at 8 months. And really, you just know your body. And no two cases, I think, of all of us are alike. We're all just different genetics and makeup. But that was what I decided to do. And so I went to Tijuana, and I get a lot of raised eyebrows for that. I'm sure you did too, right?
Yep.
Yeah. And I had a really great experience. Afterwards, I felt like my pain management was a little different than yours was. After my surgery, they only do Tylenol 750 and Tylenol in the IV. So that was hard, and it was a little painful the first 4 days for pain management. It was doable. It wasn't horrific, but it wasn't comfortable. Mm-hmm. I think the best way to describe post-op for plastics is uncomfortable.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I also, I know on your video, we talked about sleeping positions, and I am a stomach sleeper too, side sleeper, and I have incisions that kind of hip to hip. So it's hard to sleep, and when you have drains, it's hard to, it's just really hard to get comfortable.
Yeah.
And I know one of the things that I did not anticipate after the surgery was the emotions and the depression. Mm-hmm. And I think that's something that we have to talk about is like anxious feelings and how we feel after this, because I didn't go into this with a lot of post-op support. In fact, I was going to do this on my own and fly by myself. And the more I watched your surgery and your recovery, I literally had a panic attack, and I cried and told my husband he had to go too. I was like, you have to go too. And he was like, okay. And he immediately took vacation and was able to go. But I probably wouldn't recommend going by yourself. Would you?
No, and I was gonna say, did you find having him with you made a difference?
100%. I remember that first shower was really awful. Mm-hmm. I almost passed out. I was so nauseous. I was crying. I was literally praying, just like, please make this stop. Like, I felt like I had no control in my body. Once you wear, we wear the faja compression garments, and once you take that off the first time to take a shower, it's like the blood like starts to go through your body, and it just is a horrible feeling. It's not like that now, but that first time was like, I honestly asked myself a few times, why did I do this? Maybe I should have thought about this a little more, but it is good now. But I remember immediately post-op, you need to basically be showered. Like, you need somebody to shower you. You have to have somebody help you. And it was very irrational for me to think that I could do this on my own. Now, I do think I could have gone and had my gastric sleeve on my own. I do. I was fortunate that my mom went with me, but for the plastics, I would definitely 100% without a doubt recommend that you not go alone. And there's a lot of things that I'm like, different strokes for different folks, but this is one of the things I'm pretty set on. I think it makes every difference in the world to have somebody with you and support you, because it's you're kind of helpless. And that was hard. Afterwards, getting in and out of bed was excruciating for a couple days, especially on just Tylenol 750. And one of the things you said in your video that really stands true is it's a commitment. This is a commitment. And when I went home post-op, I went home to a husband that works long hours, and I have kids, little kids, that rely on me to feed them, bathe them, do everything for them, and take them to school. And I kind of had to jump back into motherhood a little bit. And one of the things I do regret is I wish I would have set up a lot more post-op support. I wish I would have been very clear with my loved ones that I needed more support. And I just don't think I understood how much support I would need post-op. And also, I think sometimes we just are afraid to ask for help. And this is not one of those moments where you need to be a martyr. This is one of those moments where you could really hurt yourself if you do too much. And that's something to really think about. You may feel like you can go and do all the things, but you have a lot of internal stitching too that could have a complication. And just like if you have a C-section, a lot of people ask me, how does this compare to a C-section? And I think this was a lot more intense than a C-section. I had a C-section with my youngest daughter. I had a very traumatic birth, like 33 hours of labor, and then an emergency C-section. And my recovery from a C-section was night and day different than this, I think. And I think you go through a lot more emotions after you have a baby, but you do go through a lot of emotions after this too. I think anytime you have a traumatic trauma to your body, it makes you just go through stuff, kind of digs up, and you think about like all the things, right? And you're like, oh. So.
And it's not uncommon, you know, a lot of people after surgery, like they start their period even if they're not due. And I think that, you know, like the trauma of surgery, like it's messing with your body, your hormones. And I think similarly that affects like your emotional state as well. You know, like recovering from a surgery is a big thing.
I think ultimately with this surgery, I'm really grateful for my VSG preparing me for this, because I learned to give my body grace and support and love instead of being hard on myself. But you have to take that from VSG surgery and amp it up like by 100 for this, because it, you know, I'm like you, I want to go do all the things, and we can't. We're just gonna make videos. We're just gonna make content. But it is hard because you feel like, you know, like I want to clean my house, I want to cook dinner, I want to go do things, and you can't. You know, you have to honor that and honor your body, what it's been through, and really love yourself back to health. And if you are not good at that, you better prepare. As you're saving for this surgery, definitely you want to prepare for that and prepare for that. But I think one of the questions I get the most is, how much was this? And how much would it have been here where I live? I live in Oklahoma, in Tulsa. And I have researched this surgery in 3 different states that I've lived in recently, because we've moved around a little bit for my husband's job recently. And I have seen this surgery for the same price where I live. And I still went to Mexico. And a lot of people don't really understand that. And they think, oh, you went to Mexico because it was cheaper. And that's just actually not true. I actually probably could have had this surgery here and paid maybe even a little less. And my cost, the cost for the procedure I had is anywhere between $6,000 and $8,500 for a tummy tuck, pubic lift, liposuction, and muscle repair. And I paid about $7,500 with my airfare. And I was lucky afterwards. I didn't stay in a recovery home. I had a good friend that lived in San Diego, so I went, I was driven to her house, and I recovered there for a few days. And then I went back to Tijuana on the last day and had a lymphatic massage, a checkup, checkup. I don't know why I said it like that. A checkup, and then I flew home. So I only stayed down there for 4 days. Yeah, no, 5 days. So I had surgery on a Monday and I flew home on a Friday. And that was, no, I flew home actually on a Thursday. So yeah, I guess I did stay there 4 days. But I do recommend if you go that you take someone with you and you stay at a recovery home and allow yourself to kind of convalesce, allow yourself to rest and restore. One of the things I'm super grateful for you sharing with me before I went was I was going to do the general anesthesia, and I watched one of your videos, I think, where you talked about the twilight epidural jet anesthesia combo, and I immediately reached out to my coordinator and asked her about that, and she says, yes, you can choose either. And I'm super grateful that I went with the one you did, because like you said in the video, your brain and your cognitive functions are so different after having general anesthesia with VSG and the twilight anesthesia with plastics. I was like emotionally and like I was on like so coherent and so I felt like I was so slow after my VSG anesthesia, and I don't even feel like my body was slow after VSG. I feel like it was all mental. Like I was in a fog, a haze, and it was very frustrating because the physical recovery is so quick after gastric sleeve surgery, but the mental takes weeks. And after plastics, it's so opposite, right? We have such a long, laboring physical recovery, but it's nice to have your brain back, because I would much rather have my brain back and be slower physically, because it just isn't, it doesn't feel good to be just lagging, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think it helps to, like, especially dealing with all the, as you said, the mental stuff, at least feeling mentally like capable of processing some of that, I think is helpful.
Absolutely. I think that was a saving grace, I think, in this is, and afterwards, I think I was really surprised how quick we can get up and move around and be mobile. And after such a traumatic surgery, I mean, you look at our pictures and you're like, wow. And we were moving and went to a hotel and recovered afterwards, or, you know, in my case, my friend's home. And I remember even like on the way to San Diego, we stopped at a taco stand and had tacos. And I remember thinking, this is so weird. I had surgery yesterday. Yeah. And it just, you know, it's kind of interesting how amazing our bodies truly are and how they can recover in a state of trauma.
Yeah. So you flew back home pretty soon after your surgery. How did the flight go? Because I know that a lot of people with the medical tourism, you know, worry about having to fly back home while they're still healing.
Well, going through TSA was interesting. I had 2 young girls that were the TSA people, and they freaked out when I went through the thing, you know, and they were like, oh my gosh, private screening. And I was wearing a long black maxi dress. I looked totally suspicious. And they took me into a private room, and I'm sure it was more humiliating for them than it was for me, because I've had 4 kids in gastric sleeve and plastics now, so they're in shame in the game. And I'm just like telling them, you know, what's going on and what I have drains, and they're just like, they could not understand, which I thought was really weird because they have such high medical tourism through there. Like, have these girls not seen drains before? And so I got real felt up by TSA. Oh. And I'm sure it was more awkward for them than it was for me, but that was interesting. A lot of people are freaked out about that, but you know, I just come from a security background. I have a background in the military and law enforcement, so I kind of just am grateful that people are secure like that and want to check those things and be thorough. So it wasn't that big a deal, but here's some things that I really was glad that I did, and I kind of learned these hacks when I did VSG, because I went to Mexico for gastric sleeve. Right. And one of the things is I'll always ask for handicapped assistance. and put on there that you need a wheelchair. Even if you don't think you do, or you may not use it, you need to ask for it. It's free, and it is a lifesaver, because when I flew back, I flew through Denver, and I don't know if you've ever walked through Denver Airport, but you basically get a lot of steps walking through Denver Airport. It's very long between gates, and I wasn't sure I would be able to do it after plastics, but I did it after gastric. No, I did not do it after gastric. I had to have the wheelchair assistance, but I didn't ever end up using the wheelchair afterwards because we had enough time, but I was slow. Like, I had to go really slow, but I enjoyed walking after my plastics because it made me feel better. The more mobile I am, the better I feel. When I lay down in bed or on the couch and then try to get up, it's painful. But the more I am active and my blood's flowing, I felt good. And so I just kind of tried to stay active in the airport and walk and get movement in, because it just made my body feel better. And so if you can, ask for that wheelchair assistance just in case. But I did end up declining as we got off because we had enough time to get to the next stop, and we stopped and rested. My husband and I stopped and rested when I needed to, and I just listened to my body. But it did feel good to get that movement in between flights, because you really don't want to be sitting a lot after surgery. You want to keep going, because there's always a risk of pulmonary embolisms and blood clots and things like that. So you always want to keep moving. And so I'm trying to think what else. It was really weird with the drains, because I don't know how you felt about traveling with the drains. It just feels weird, and like they're like hanging from your stomach area, and you just try to, I don't know how you secured yours, but I had a passport holder underneath my maxi dress, and I clipped the drains to that. But it was weird because I just felt like I was carrying around like drains. And flying home was hard, but I also recommend, I did book a first class flight on the way home, which I'd never flown first class before, because number one, I'm really cheap, and number two, I'm like, listen, we're all going to get there at the same time anyway. But in this case, I was super grateful that I upgraded my husband too, because he ended up changing his flight. That's another thing that was really crazy, was when we got to Mexico and I realized just how intense this recovery was going to be. I looked at him, because he had planned to go home the next day, and then I was going to rest and come home Friday by myself. And I looked at him and I was like, there's no way you're leaving me here. And he had to pay $500 to change all our tickets. And that was intense. But he didn't tell me at the time, because I'm so frugal. I probably would have been like, never mind, I'll go by myself. But he didn't say anything. He just paid it. And then later he's like, oh yeah, about that. And I'm like, it was worth it. But that's why I think if I would have just planned ahead and known he needed to come back with me, it would have been easier. And then on the way back, I upgraded him to first class too, because we'd never flown first class together, so we thought that'd be fun. So it was like a date night on the way home, only it was like really expensive.
Well, I do think that's a good thing to note. Is I knew a few girls while I was down there as well who ended up having to change their flights for various reasons, complications, or you end up realizing once you're there that you feel like you need more time, and that's something to keep in mind. You might end up feeling like you need to make changes to your tickets, and that can get pricey, but it's one of those things where
allow that for your budget.
Yeah
And this is not the time to be nickel and diming and trying to save money. I mean, I'm a money saver through and through, but when it comes to this surgery, this is a really big surgery. This is not I could shop around for a better deal. No, you need to really go to whoever's work you you're going to look like this for the rest of your life. So you need to go to someone who has the results that you want. And one of the things that I don't really talk about, I guess, but after I had my daughter, after my C-section, it was really traumatic. I did not have a lot of support afterwards, and I was kind of thrown into motherhood on my own right after a C-section, and I had a lot of resentment for that, and it spiraled into some postpartum depression. And so that brought up a lot of feelings after this surgery, because I felt so helpless like I did with the C-section, and I almost kind of slid back to that dark place. And so that was why I was really glad that my husband did stay. We did pay that extra money. I had a little bit more room in first class, nobody touched me. On the way there, I was like crammed in. And on the way home, the last thing I wanted was anybody to touch me. I needed space because I was just fragile.
Yeah.
And, you know, you never know what emotions are going to come up after this surgery. And you never know kind of where your brain goes after this. Like, I kind of went back to that time 4 years ago after my C-section and was kind of resentful a little bit. And I just kind of had to walk through that and say, no, that was 4 years ago. This is different, Erin. You've got this.
Mm-hmm.
And in a way, it was healing because I walked through that traumatic time and then re-healed in another time, if that makes any sense. And so just allow yourself a ton of grace because you never know what you're going to feel. And I think after big surgeries like this, you can have all the feels.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Do you feel like you're done with plastics? Do you think that you'll ever get anything else done? Is it on your radar at all? I mean,
I don't know. I feel like I'm only 2 weeks out, so I still feel really sore. And we talked a little bit on my channel about how you didn't have the muscle repair, and that muscle repair is pretty intense.
Yeah.
It feels like an internal corset. If that describes it, it's like they go in, and I have the actual video of how they sewed me up. It's coming. I'm editing it right now, and it's intense. And I had a lot of pain after this, and I always say, like, I told my husband, I'm done. I'm like, done. I'm never having surgery again. Who knows? I mean, honestly, after I had my gastric sleeve, I didn't think I would do this. I thought, well, I mean, I didn't even know if my gastric sleeve would work. I mean, honestly, I was very private about my gastric sleeve for a long time. I made YouTube videos, but nobody knew I existed. Like 3 people watched it. And then one day, like 12,000 people watched it. It was weird. And I didn't know if I would really lose weight. And I didn't know if I would be here today. And so, you know, you never say never because you never know. And I may be a year from now doing round 2. Who knows? But I will say a lot of thought, prayer, and saving will have to go into it.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Are you feeling like, so you just said you're really just 2 weeks out, but like, how are you feeling like when you see the results so far? I mean, I'm sure you've seen yourself in a mirror since the surgery. Like, how is that mental shift happening?
When I look at my body now, I see like my 17-year-old self. Like, that's how tiny I am. And when I was 17, I had like a muscular stomach and it was flat and toned. And then I look in the mirror now and I'm like, whoa, like I look like I never had 4 kids. And it's weird. I still have a lot of trauma to my stomach. And I still have stretch marks across, which I was like, could you not have done something with that, Dr. Pope? No, I'm just kidding. He did what he could. I've already done the damage to my skin with 4 pregnancies and 150 pounds of fat. But I still have, like, it still looks rough and bruised, but it's really small. And just looking, I probably, if I had to guess, wear a size 2 extra small right now, and nothing in my closet fits. I mean, I'm kind of like, what am I supposed to wear? Like my daughter's clothes? It's weird. It's really weird to go from a 3XL size 24 to a extra small size 2, maybe even a 0. I don't know. It's going to be, I'm going to have to get all new clothes.
Mm-hmm.
How do you feel?
Consider in terms of your budget, you know?
Yeah. I mean, I didn't lose, I know we talked about that. You lost 15 pounds of skin. I lost 8.5 pounds, and 4.5 was skin, and about like 3.5 or so was liposuction. So it was about 8.5. And so they took a picture of me laying there with like the skin on me, and it was just, wow. Like, you know, you think like we carry that around every day. And honestly, I taught myself to love my body at every size and every imperfection and every blemish, because that was part of my healing from VSG, was just loving myself back to health. And I even have a tattoo on my wrist that I talk about on my channel, Fly, and it means first love yourself. And that was part of my healing, was loving myself no matter the loose skin. So a little bit, I felt guilty having this surgery because I felt like, but didn't you say we're going to love yourself at any weight or thing? But then I thought to myself, yep, but I'm also never going to stop working harder on myself. And if that means taking it to a next chapter of skin removal and making myself feel my level 10, then I'm going to do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, anything else that you wanted to talk about?
No, I think that's it. Thank you guys so much for watching our journeys.
Yeah, thanks so much to Erin from My Level 10 Life. She also has a side vlog channel, My Level 10 Lifestyle, correct?
Yes.
Yes, so they'll both be linked down below. You should check them both out. She also has an Instagram, which I'll also link down below, and you should check out. So lots of great content on weight loss, on plastics, on budgeting, meal prep stuff, I believe, as well.
Yes.
So kind of a little bit of everything, and then vlogs on the vlog channel. But it was really exciting to get to talk to someone who not only had VSG around the same time as I did, but also had plastics around the same time in the same area, but just with two different surgeons. I know that my surgeon in particular is pretty popular in the weight loss surgery community, but there are so many other options as well. So really, it's all about making sure that you do the research and find the surgeon that's the right fit for you. There's a lot of different great options out there, and there are a lot of not so great options out there. And so one of the things that we've both talked about really wanting to focus on is making sure that you are making a smart, informed decision about where you go to have your VSG, where you go to have your plastic surgery. And like Erin said, while money can absolutely be a factor, it should not be the only factor. It should not be the most important factor, because you want to make sure that you have results that you like, but also that you live to tell a tale. Not to be morbid, but there are excellent surgeons out there, and you just need to make sure you do the work to find them.
Yeah.
But anyways, thank you guys all so much for watching. You can head over to Erin's channel to see my video, and talk to you all soon.
Bye.